If you're like many other people, our age group, the millennials, many of us are struggling with four big things. With especially with finances. Number one, there's a lot of student debt and high interest credit card debts and other types of debt like that. We're also dealing with job instability. We don't know for sure how long we'll have a job, especially in this environment. It seems like every year there's always some sort of news coming out saying, "Oh, it's going to be horrible and bad," and then once every 8 years, 10 years, whatever it is bad. Those are two things we have. Another thing is that a lot of people my age or our age group cannot purchase a house. Housing is way too expensive. You just don't make enough to purchase a house. You have to live in an apartment or whatnot. And lastly, because of all these things, you cannot build wealth. All your money is going to your debt. How do you do this? Well, I'm guessing that these are all true. If you're listening to this, this is probably somewhat true for you. And I'm going to give you a framework to think about. Now, this is for whoever wants it. This is how I would think about it. This is not advice. This is not personal financial advice for you. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just how I've done it. And this is how I would do it if I was in that situation. Fortunately, through school, I have a number of degrees. Fortunately, through school, I was able to pay most of my education off pretty quick. That was never really a huge issue for me because I worked through my schooling. I pretty much paid for all myself. There was a little bit of help from a few people, but it was very minimal compared to how much I spent on my education. So that's number one. Number two, I want to point out is I don't have much credit card debt. Any credit card debt I have is a zero interest and or less, maybe 4% or something like that. And that's done intentionally just because the interest rates are so cheap. I can use that money for something else, investing specifically. So those things I've never had to struggle with, because I've actively have tried to put away money, actively have tried to save, actively have tried to invest all my life, even though I probably make a very average wage compared to the rest of society. All right, so those are two things that we want to think about. Next one is job instability. Right now, my job is fairly stable. There has been times in the past, numerous times, where my job was not stable for one reason or the other, especially one situation where I would have been laid off, except for I quit first, and I took another job opportunity. Fortunately, I had that lined up before they laid me off. So that's job instability. A house. I actually am a renter right now. I rent just like everyone else. I rent an old farmhouse. Nothing fancy, just very simple. And investing. Well, let's guess what? That's one area that I've been, because I do not have my personal house to live in, I've been taking all my extra money and dumping it into real estate. I've invested in Bitcoin and other crypto. I've invested in the stock market. I have my money kind of all over the place. But those are some big items to think about as we go along here. Kind of who I am and what my perspective is on this and where I've come from. Okay, so those are the four big areas we want to address today. And all these are connected because once you start fixing one and start thinking properly about one or two of them, all the other ones start laying themselves out properly. Because this is the stepwise organization pattern that I would take if I was going to try to get out of the situation that most probably you're in right now. So number one, if you have student loan debt, what is it and how much is it and what's your interest rate? That's number one. If your interest rate's really low, I don't know how low, whatever gap, but let's just say the interest rates for a student debt was 4%. Let's just say maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6, doesn't matter. But if your interest rate is really, really low, 3%, 4%, pay how I would do it if I was you, pay the minimum. Pay whatever they tell you to pay. To pay off your debt, pay this amount so you can get it paid off, pay that amount, whatever they tell you to pay. No more, no less. That's number one. If your student loan debt is a very low interest rate. Now, if your student loan debt is a very high interest rate, like 10, 12, 15%, which I don't think it goes that high, but I could be wrong. Different story, different topic, different story. We can talk about that. That's a higher interest rate. But 4%, that's inflation right now, or approximately inflation right now. So you're pretty much your inflation is destroying your debt for you. it's pretty much eating away at your debt. As time goes on, your dollar becomes less and less valuable. So if you're paying $500 against your student loan today, that $500 today is going to be worth way more today than it will be in 10 years from now or 20 years from now. So you would rather spend that $500 20 years from now than today, because that $500 today is way more way more valuable. So if you can pay whatever they tell you to pay to keep everything paid up correctly and on right time and all that stuff, that's the best way to do it. Credit card debt, focus all your energy on credit card debt. Forget your student loans, especially if you have low interest rates. Credit card debt, knock that as fast as you can. You do not want to be paying those high interest rates. I mean, what are some of those interest rates? 20, 30% now? They're crazy. So to get those paid off ASAP, those are just eating away at your finances. There's a number of methods out there. The snowball method. You can do the avalanche method. It doesn't matter. There's other ways of doing it too. And maybe we'll talk about that later in a different video. But maybe I can give you a lot more detailed explanation of other methods of getting your loans or credit cards paid off. But for now, this is a big picture. Get your credit cards paid off. I don't care what method you use, pay it off. Now, again, maybe I should take some time and talk about some of these specific types of ways of paying off loans or credit cards or whatever. But for now, that's enough for now. If you don't know how to do it, drop me a note down below and I'll make another video and explain it, and maybe make some sort of content for you as well. So reach out if you want me to explain more of these types of things. Okay, so get your credit cards paid off as soon as possible. That's number one. That's number one debt. Okay, your living quarters. So you're struggling right now because you're living in a house or apartment where you maybe do not like as well. Maybe it's not as nice as you want it to be. You want to go buy a house that you can live in with your family, get married, and have kids. Those are amazing things to do. But you have all this debt. So you first pay off the debt. And then before you buy a house, keep renting. But rent a place if you can. Try to find a place that's under market value, that someone maybe is not renting at the highest rate. It's going to be hard to find. It's going to be a lot of competition. But how to get into a house like that is this way. I'm just telling you from a landlord's experience, because I am a landlord, which I'll tell you about a little later. If you want to be a good tenant, here's the thing. Have a good record. Number one, like always pay on time. Number one. Number two, don't ever get evicted, period. If you're evicted, like landlords are just, we do not like people who have been evicted because they just red flag like crazy. Eviction, I don't care what excuse you have, eviction is not the answer. At least my experience with landlords, if you're struggling, landlords will somehow work with you one way or the other. Help you move out, help you get another place, maybe delay your payments or spread out. Landlords will try overall, at least I will, try to help you best I can. But you do have to pay, obviously, but we'll try to help out any way we can. And the reason why you have to pay is obviously to live someplace. And if you run the numbers, oftentimes landlords are not making much money at all. Like they have a responsibility to take care of the property, so they should make some money for doing work for you. That's just part of life. It's exchange of value. But if you start running numbers, a lot of times landlords do not get paid right away. Long term, they do. It's a long-term game, and it takes years. Sometimes it takes 10, 20, 30 years before they actually see the benefit of their long-term buy and hold and rent business. So oftentimes landlords, myself included, we have other jobs. This is not our only job we do, because as of now, we cannot, we probably could support ourselves with it, but the danger of doing that, the risk is so high. If one thing goes out and we don't have enough money, we need another income coming in. It really does help out a lot. Okay. Those are some things to think about here. Side tangent there with landlording, which we'll get into a little later here. So that's number one. Number two, we got the debt issue taken care of. Now we have to think about housing and a job. So these are going to go hand in hand, because the strategy that I'm going to share with you, this is how I would do it if I was in a situation with these issues. Okay, you're at an apartment complex right now. You want to buy your house. You work a full-time job. You work 40, 50 hours a week. Fine. Are you salary? If you are, okay, this strategy might not work as well. Do plan B, which I'll be telling you in a second here. Plan A, though, if you're hourly, see if your company can allow you to work more hours. Can you work overtime? Can you work weekends? Can you work holidays? Can you produce more things for provide more value to your company? If you can do those things, you can produce a lot more money coming in. Because remember, time and a half. Let's say you make $20 an hour, but now you're making $30 an hour for overtime. If you're making $30 an hour, now you're making $45 an hour, and it keeps going up from there. You know what I'm talking about. If you make $50 an hour, $75 an hour, these are nice pay bumps, really nice pay bumps, especially if you're in a financial situation where you need to get more money, work more hours, literally find more jobs, find more opportunities to provide services to your company. Now, if they'll give you some, work it, then also do plan B. Plan B is good, especially if you are salary. Now, one note before I hit plan B is either situation, hourly or salary. If you want to make more money, try to add more value to your company. I already mentioned that, but by adding value to your company, sometimes you move up the ladder. Sometimes you find something that you could help with that can provide them with more money for the company. If you can do that, they'll pay you more. That's a side note. Plan B is get a second job. Now, before you just go out and go get a second job, think carefully about your second job. Think long term. If it is me, if you're in a, let's say, a high income area, if you're in a high cost of living area where rent is crazy, housing pricing is crazy, what I would do is I would get an online job. Find an online digital job where you could be a digital nomad. Why would you want to be a digital nomad? If you are a digital nomad, you can go anywhere in the world you want with that job. Now, let's say your present job makes you $65,000 a year or $75,000 a year. Fine, that's great. What if you could get a part-time job that made $20,000 a year? You're like, well, I couldn't live off that. And no, true, it'd be really tough to live off that, almost impossible in the United States. But what if you could scale that job up? What if you could the first year you make $20,000, second year you can make $50,000 or $70,000. Now you're making about what you're making at your main job. So now you're having two incomes coming in. You're working, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Yes, it's going to be hard. Of course, you'll be working a lot of hours. But again, you're trying to pay debt off. And in addition, if you can work up to that amount of pay, awesome. But even if you can't, let's say you're making $75,000 in, let's say, LA or something like that. Maybe that's really low. I don't know. But let's just say you're making $75,000 a year. What if this online company that you're working for was only going to give you $45,000 a year for working for them? Well, now if you go full time, you're only making $45,000, $50,000 a year. But what if you would move? Since you have this digital job that you can work anywhere in the world, arbitrage that for a place where you can buy property for much cheaper. You can buy cheaper property in different parts of the country, in the South, in the Midwest, etc. Look around. There are great towns and great cities, great opportunities in different parts of the country where you could buy a house for a half or a third or a quarter of the price of what you'll be paying for in some of the big cities. Of course, you won't have the nightlife. Of course, you won't have the partying and all that stuff, and your friends and family you might have to move on from them. But this is going to be so important. You're not going to a lot of these things anymore because you're paying off debt. You're trying to get your life in order. So this is something to remember. You're going to have to get your life in order. And that's one thing I did not mention when I was talking about paying off debt. You may have to cut extras from your life. I would think about it this way. You may have to stop going out to eat, especially if you don't make a lot of money. Eat at home. Now, if your hourly wage becomes worth way more than the cost of going out to eat, by all means go out to eat. But if your income, hourly income, is way less than that, you'd be better off making some food at home, making meals, throw it in the freezer, throw it in the refrigerator, and do this on weekends or whenever you have some spare time. Make some food, and now you have food to eat. Same with other things too you can do in your life. Let's say if you're a man and you have to cut your hair, buy a razor, cut your own hair. Okay, you don't have to go to the barber. If you think you do, okay, but no, you don't. If you're trying to impress other people by your hair, I don't know. Your life is more important than trying to impress people you don't know and people you don't really care about. Okay, so stop trying to impress them. Just get your hair cut and move on. The same could be said about like 1,000 other things that you can do in your life to cut down your expenses. Shop thrift, don't buy brand new cars, etc. There's so many things you can do to decrease the amount of money that's going out of your pocket. Here's one that a lot of people miss: cuts of subscriptions. There's so many subscriptions for movies, there's so many subscriptions for different software, or even like gaming that takes up so much of your time and money. Just cut off your life. I know it's gonna be a pain. Maybe this is where you drop off because you're like, I have to really play. Okay, now you're addicted. Come on, we have a life to live. We have to provide value to the world. All right, changing hands here. Okay, so now we talked about getting a digital job. So you could arbitrage your time or your location for the amount of money you're making. So now you can move to a area that is a lower economic area. And guess what? Now the income that you're making is still worth way more in that area than maybe in the city that you were at. And now you can purchase a house. Now you have a stable job that you've had for a year or two. You can go get your mortgage, go get a house. If I was going to buy a house, this is how I would do it if I was in a situation as the description I set up front. I would go put the least amount down on a house as possible. If they allow me to put 3.5% down, I'll put 3.5% down. It's just how I'm thinking about this. Now, if you cannot manage money well, you need to learn how to manage money. If you want me to talk about money management, drop a comment down below and ask me to talk about money management in future videos. But for this one, I'm not talking about money management. Okay. If you cannot manage money, don't do this. Try to save more money, put more down. If you can manage money well, put the least amount down as possible on your new house that you're buying in the Midwest or the South or wherever in the United States, and now you have your own home. There's another opportunity you can do with this portable job that you have, this online, is you can be a digital nomad. You can travel the world with your job, especially if you're single or if you're just married. You can travel for a couple of years. This would be an amazing opportunity to travel the world. And a lot of people can travel for about the same amount of money that they live yearly in the location that they're at. Even though I live in the Midwest myself, where it is housing is a lot cheaper, I know that all the money that I spend on food, transportation, clothing, housing, etc., I could spend about the exact same amount of money traveling the world for two people, which is quite crazy. You just have to be smart doing that, though. If you hear me talk about traveling the world, how I would do it, even though I don't really travel the world, how I do it, I could give you my thoughts on that, but there are better YouTube videos out there that would be able to help direct you in that way. But if you want me to talk about that, would be a fun topic to really dig into, because I do have thoughts on that, how I would do that if it was me, if I was in that case, if I want to be a digital nomad. Okay, so now we got two things going on. We got a house, we got our high interest loans and debt paid off. We're just paying the minimum on our student debts. I would continue paying the minimum for the rest of your life as long as you can go. I'd pay the minimum on your house loan too, especially if you get a low interest rate when you bought your house. If you ever have a chance, if the interest rates ever go down farther than they are whenever you buy the house, refinance, pull your money out, pay the minimum. And here's the thing you have to do. I would do, let's just put it that way. I'm not giving financial advice. If it was me, I would reinvest the rest, literally reinvest the rest. You bought your house. And this is how you reinvest the rest. Buy your house for as cheap as possible, the best price possible, lowest money down possible, get your loan on it. Take any extra money you have. Let's say you have $20,000 saved up. You put, let's say, $10,000 towards the house. You take that extra $10,000, and now for the next year, you're fixing up that house. Now, when you bought the house, it could have been one of four things. It could have been a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex or a fourplex. I would buy one of those types of homes if it was me. Why? Because you're going to do something called house hacking. And this is where you're going to be living in the home and renting out the other spaces to other people. A single family home, you can live in one part of the home and rent the rest of the house out to other people. Rent room by room to friends or family. You can live in the basement. You can live on the porch. You can sleep on the couch. It doesn't matter. For the first year, it doesn't matter. You're paying debt down. You're getting your life in order. You're building wealth. It doesn't matter where you sleep for a year. Get a cot somewhere. It doesn't matter. You take the worst place, rent out the nicest spaces to your friends and family. They pay for your loan for your house. They pay for your insurance. They pay for your maintenance and all utilities because they're paying you rent. All right. If this is making sense, down below, say it makes sense. Okay. If you really like this, tell me if you really like this. Because now you're doing everything now. We've covered everything, the whole 9 yards. We've talked about student loan debt, high interest debt. We talked about job insecurity. You have 2 jobs going on. And now when you quit your first job, you have that second job, that digital job that you have now, that portable job. Not only does it give you an extra skill, but also it gives you that stability because now you can find other digital jobs as well. And also when you buy your house, you're renting out room by room or unit by unit to other people. And now you have a second source of income, property management, a landlord, landlady, whatever. So now you have more stability, you're building your wealth. That's how I would do it. Now I'm saying this from experience because I do have property. This is one of my properties right here. I'm showing you around here. I'm gonna have some seats here, some tooling. We put a ceiling there, repainted the walls. I'm just sitting here at one of my properties talking to you right now. This is real life to me. I'm living it. So if you really want to learn more, drop a note before. If you want me to expand on any of these topics in more detail or go into any of these rabbit trails, speak to me. Tell me down below. Also, feel free to like and subscribe. I would love to have you here more often. Would love to talk to you more. I really want to talk about some of the big issues that people are dealing with in today's world, especially for the millennial generation. We're dealing with so many things. And so I'm here to help any way I can to help you learn more and transform your life into something better. So with that, adios. Have a great day. Comment below. Tell me what you think.